So now we're ready to wrap this little platform in the front with some decorative paper. I'm going to eventually use this brown gears paper, but I'm going to start out with a piece of white cardstock just to test my plan, and you could possibly use it as a template as well. So I've cut this at 1 3/4 by 3 3/4, and then I want to do some scoring. I'm going to score at 1 inch, 1 1/8, 2 5/8, and 2 3/4. So that was 1 1/8, 2 5/8, and 2 3/4. Then I'm going to turn it the other direction and score it at 1 1/8 and 1 1/4. So that was 1 1/8 and 1 1/4. So I've just taken some pencil and highlighted those scoring lines so that you would be able to see them better. So now I want to put some score tape in these 3 sections. So score tape, score tape, score tape. Avoid the 1/8 inch channels, just come into those places. So we have score tape on all of those. And then we can put score tape down in this section as well. But again, avoid this 1/8 inch channel. And then let's do some cutting. We're going to cut on the 1/8 inch lines all the way back to that first score at 1 1/8. So we'll just make those cuts right along those score lines. And then on this front tab here, we're going to come in at an angle, but now we're only going to come to the 1 1/4 inch score line. So we'll do that on both sides. So now we have this kind of thing going on. Now let's just try it out here for a second and see what's going to happen. Just kind of creasing on my score lines. So I'll attach that top piece on first. And then we can use some wet glue, or you could put some 1/8 inch score tape on these long skinny tabs and wrap them around to the front edge. And now we need to do a little trimming on these bottom pieces. The last step is going to be to fold this top piece down, but we want to avoid bulk, so I'm just kind of peeking through there. Sorry, let me move it this way. I'm peeking through here, and I can see that I can cut like this. And I'll bring this one over here. So let me make those cuts and we'll see what it looks like. So this is what my piece looks like now. It has these 2 funny little 1/8 inch pieces that are sticking out. And we'll put it on by attaching the top part of the platform first, then wrapping the little 1/8 inch guys down. Then these bottom 2 pieces will come in, and then finally this top part will come down. So that's how I'm going to wrap my front platform. So I'm going to get that done and then I'll be back. So here's my piece of brown decorative paper. To this point I've done my scoring. I've put my score tape on. I've also drawn in with pencil on the score lines just so that I will be able to easily see where I want to bring my cuts to. So I'm going to do my cuts next. So now I have my piece of decorative paper prepared. I did decide to put some 1/8 inch score tape on these little extensions. That may work. I may still need some white glue. And then I'm just turning this upside down, and just in case I didn't get my corners cut all the way correctly, I'm just going to put some dark marker so that no white lines will show through there. And now I'm ready to attach it. So I have my top attached. I'm going to take off the backing from these little 1/8 inch wings. Go ahead and fold them in. Then remove the backing from the side wings next, put them down, and then the top tab goes on last. So here's my platform nicely covered. I've burnished it and inked any of the corners. So now we're ready to start working on the front here, and to do that I'm going to make a template to start with by measuring across the front, and mine is just a hair over 3 inches, just a hair. So I'm going to cut a 3-inch circle out of white cardstock. Actually, I'll cut it just outside of the line when I draw the circle, and that'll give me my right measurement there. So I'll get that circle cut, and here's my circle. Now what we need to do is measure to create a slot here that goes around the platform. So I'm going to turn this on its side here so I can see it better. I'm going to measure from the top of the platform to the top of the circle, and on mine it's a 1/2 inch. And then I know my platform should be about 1/8 inch thick, but we'll of course want to allow a little bit more than 1/8 inch. So I'm just going to take my template over here to my craft mat and line up one edge on this side. Line up an edge with a line on my craft mat, and then I can come in and draw a line 1/2 inch down from the top, and then I'm going to draw another line, probably not quite a 1/16 of an inch more than 1/8 of an inch apart from that first line. So this is a little bit bigger than 1/8 of an inch, and we'll test and see how it works. And then our platform is just a little bit over 1.5 inches wide. So if I take my circle and I line up those lines that we just made on one of the grid lines on my ruler so that I have a grid line in the middle, and probably at this point I'll use a little temporary adhesive so things don't want to shift around. And now to measure that, it's I said in a little over 1.5 inches. So from center, and I'll just mark center on here. From center I'm going to go 3/4 plus a 1/16 and try that out. So 3/4 plus a 1/16. Now I'm going to cut this slot out with my craft knife, and then I'll be back to try it on. So here I'm trying on my circle template, and I'm not sure if you can see this. My platform must not be exactly in center because or else I didn't mark this slot exactly in center. It's a little bit too big on this side, so I'm going to come in with a scrap, and then I can just shorten that a tiny bit. And then it seems to be just a little bit hung up on when it goes to go on. So I'm going to take this off gently around this decorative paper, and I'm just going to make that slot a little deeper by taking a hair off the bottom. And you want to just experiment. You know, if you need to cut a second circle because your first one is not close enough to work with, then by all means do that. Just take your time and do that. So now I just know I need to bring this in just a tiny bit on that side. Other than that, and I'll mark this the front so that I know that's how it should go on my piece of chipboard. So here I have a piece of lightweight chipboard that I've cut to the same size as my template. And I'll put my template down on here. Use some temporary adhesive if you need to. And mark my slot. And then when I cut this slot out, I'll make sure to leave the line behind. So we want to, because we need to allow for that pencil width. So I'll put my ruler on the outside of that line to cut my slot. And then go ahead and try it on. Be kind of gingerly when you come around these corners up here because you don't want to destroy them. And then test that fit and see how that is. And mine is pretty good. So I'll carefully take this off. And then I'm going to attach a piece of black cardstock to it and cut around the edge and cut around the hole to trim that up. And then I've just taken a minute to ink around the edge of the boiler there and also around the edge of the platform. It probably would have been smarter to do that before I covered it with paper, but I just stuck a scrap piece of cardstock in here so that I wouldn't mar the decorative paper. Now to decorate the front of the locomotive, I'm going to do a layering process. First I'm going to cut a circle of a 2 3/4 inch diameter circle out of this paper. I've already backed it with some of the thin Stick It so that it will be adhesive. And then I'm going to use just this front wheel part from, get it out of the glare here. This is a Cherry Lynn design called Vintage Bicycle, and I'm just going to use this front wheel part. I'll cut it all out and then trim off the other parts of the bicycle. Now if you don't have a die like this, it will probably take something that's about 2 inches or so that can fit down inside of here. You can experiment. Some things I thought about were this is a clock face. I think it's a Tim Holtz clock face, and it would fit in there, and you could put some hands on it, or a gear, or anything that you care to use. You don't have to feel like you need to have this specific die. I happen to have it, and so I decided that's what I'm going to use. So you can see I've already got it prepped here. I've got it on a piece of the, actually I think this is the reverse side of the brown gear paper, and there was actually a clock there, so I just centered it on that, but it won't show, so it doesn't matter actually where it goes. And again, this is most important for this die, to back it with something like Stick It, which allows you to cut intricate dies and have them, all of the pieces are adhesive when you're finished. So I'll get my pieces cut on my die cut machine, and then I'll be back. So here are my 2 dies. You can see here, I think, how I've just trimmed off these little bicycle pieces here to get this round circle. And I'm going to put that on top of my green circle. So I'll just get this centered kind of. Before I do that, I'll put some ink around the edges here. So there are my dies connected, and I always burnish these delicate dies from the back. And then we can go ahead and layer this on top of our chipboard circle. Now, if you want it to be lined up a certain way, just make sure you center it the way you want it. And then I would put a fresh blade in my craft knife to do this next step. You're going to cut out this slot from behind. So then I've decided as a finishing touch to add a small gear here in the center. And so I'll just use my awl to push a hole through the chipboard, and then I have a little brad here to fasten it with. And I could put a little bit of glossy accents behind there too. And then before you glue it down, just run your fingers along the edge, make sure that it's fitting in there nicely, and if any edges are coming over the edge of the boiler, just go ahead and give them a little sanding down with your emery board. And when you're satisfied, go ahead and put some wet glue on the back here and put it down and let it dry. And now that our front piece is securely attached, I'm going to take my reserved piece of trim, and I'll put the seam on the bottom, of course, and wrap that around the front, and I'll overlap that piece of chipboard just a little smidgy bit. So there's our front all trimmed out. And next we'll work on the light that goes on the top of this platform.